Hi everybody, this is a as promised video about osmosis and diffusion. The assignment on osmosis is serious business. I'm going to just go through these pretty quick. So there was a first case study. A farmer put too much fertilizer on his field. The crop started dying, and the question is why. So what is the physical process that caused the plants to wilt and eventually die? And is water loss. So the first question relates to what? Why is my pen not writing? There we go. Water loss to the hypertonic soil. Okay, so the soil was hypertonic. Water tries to flow into hypertonic solutions, so the corn roots were hypotonic. Now, in a normal situation, the corn roots should be reversed. The corn roots are hypertonic, and water is attempting to get into the corn roots, which is allows water to be absorbed by the corn roots, and then in the next layer above the corn roots, the stem, it's even more hypertonic, right? And so the water potential pulls the water up the plant. And now some people get that confused because they're like, wait, so water's moving from low to high? And yes, but it's moving from a physically low place to a physically high place. But the reason that's possible is because it's moving from a high concentration in the soil to a low concentration at the top. So there's a lot of water. The concentration of water, not the total amount, the concentration is greater in the soil than in the roots, and then greater in the stem than in the roots, and then greater in the leaves than in the stem. And so that does cause water to go from high to low, which is sort of the reverse of the physical distance. If he'd caught it earlier, could he have done anything? They could have flooded the field with like deionized water to decrease the concentration of the solutes, and that might have solved the problem if they had done it fast enough. Then question 3 says, generally people water their plants with 100% water, no solutes added. That's not exactly true. When you use tap water, there's solutes in there, but it's close enough. What sort of environment does this create around the roots of the plant? And this creates around the plant. In a normal, healthy plant, it creates a hypotonic environment. So water is going to tend to move from the soil into the roots. Now, the last question was the one that I think people struggled with the most. I'm going to show you the calculations here, and then I'll kind of take you through what I did. So after realizing what happened, they measured the concentration of fertilizer in the field, and they found that they knew that the salts applied had an ionization constant of 1.8. That's just a given value, right? If the water potential of the soil around the corn was negative 1.13 and the average temperature is 29, what was the molarity of the dissolved fertilizer in the farmer's field? Also, what must the water potential in the corn roots have been, expressed as a value greater than or less than? So we're trying to figure out the water potential in the roots, right? We're trying to calculate the water potential in the soil and then use that to determine what the water potential in the roots are. So water potential, if you remember, is an equation that looks like this. The water potential is equal to the solute potential plus the pressure potential. But in an open system like a farmer's field, where there is no additional pressure, we don't have to think about the pressure potential. In that case, the water potential is the solute potential. And we have an equation that's in your equation sheet for calculating solute potential. It's negative ICRT. So if we know that the water potential is equal to the solute potential, then it's just a chug and plug. We know that the water potential tells you around the corn was a negative 0.13. That number goes here. Okay, and then it's I is your ionization constant right there. C is the value we're looking for. It's the molarity of the soil. The R is just a given value. It's 0.0831 liter bar moles. Again, that's just in the equation. And then the temperature, you have to add the temperature in Celsius to 273 to find the temperature in Kelvin. It's just sort of algebra, and you'll come up with an answer that looks like that. That's the water potential of the soil. So if water was going, if the plants were wilting because water was going from someplace into the soil, then that means this value, right, the soil water concentration must be less than, right, the solute concentration of the root. So the root water potential must have been greater than the soil water potential, right? Actually, hold on, I'm not expressing that correctly. I should express that differently because this value is the concentration of the soil. Let me do this differently. So what I should say is the potential of the soil was negative 0.13, and the potential of the root must have been, because water left it, it must have been greater than negative 0.13, right? So it asks you to express that as greater than or less than. And that's just, again, so water's moving from high to low, so it must have been greater than the solute potential. Over on the second problem, we have a guy who gets deionized water injected into his blood vessels, and it causes his oxygen levels to decrease and he dies. What problem did the distilled water in the patient's bloodstream create? Well, the problem in this case is the distilled water caused the cells of his body to expand and burst, and his blood, and as a result, lost the ability to carry oxygen because the red blood cells would carry oxygen. So that's the problem of the distilled water. The distilled water was very hypotonic and forced the water into the red blood cells, causing them to break. Now, in real life, this can't actually happen. They don't have bags of distilled water at the hospital that somebody could accidentally inject into a person. What happened to the patient's blood cells as a result? Consider the function of red blood cells. Well, red blood cells carry oxygen. So the reason the patient's blood oxygen levels went down is all of a sudden these red blood cells were bursting and couldn't carry oxygen. After Tom made the air, was there anything that could have been done? Probably not. You can't really take that deionized water back. If you could give the person a transfusion, maybe you could keep enough red blood cells circulating in his body that his body could add ions to the deionized water and eventually like get it to an isotonic solution, and you wouldn't, avoid death. But there's not much you could have done. Then you were asked to make a sketch, and again we have a question about water potential. So what is the water potential of the distilled water inside the person's body if it was under pressure? Now the thing here that I'm testing is, did you take notes on my Friday lecture where I talked about the water potential of distilled water? Distilled water has a water potential value of 1, right? So absent any pressure, that is the highest water potential that can exist. It's pure water. It's 100% water. So in this case, the equation is this one right here. So the water potential is going to be equal to the solute potential plus the pressure potential. Well, the solute potential is 1. The pressure potential is 0.0106. So we just add those together. And so the water potential is equal to 1.0106. And that's the water potential. The pressure causes actually the water to try even harder to get in because it actually increases the potential, the water potential of the solution. So that's the review of Osmosis is Serious Business. Please let me know if you have questions.